Hey guys, I am Smoothi Ranjan. Welcome to my channel where I am going to take you through all that you need to become a photographer. So today we are going to discuss on an important chapter which as a photographer each one of you should know, exposure triangle. I am going to keep my video very simple and the best part is we are going to do all this in less than 8 minutes. While we are going through the video, if you feel it's super helpful to you, please hit a like button. It will be helpful to me. So without losing much time, let's get started. Well, what is exposure? Exposure is the overall brightness or the darkness of an image. More specifically, it is the amount of light that enters into your camera and hits the sensor when you click your photo. Now, when your camera is more exposed, it results in a brighter image, and when it is less exposed, it results in a darker image. Why it is so important in photography? You should remember, photography is the art of capturing light. When you click a photo and you find your image is brighter, that means your camera has collected more light, resulting in overexposed image. Whereas in the other side, if you find your image is darker, that means your camera has not collected enough light, resulting in a underexposed image. Now the question is, how do you control this exposure? There are three elements which helps us in setting the exposure. Those are aperture, shutter speed and ISO. These three elements together forms an exposure triangle. Now there are different settings by which, or I can say the combination of different settings between these three elements is what brings a good exposure to your image. Before I go in details, let me tell you, aperture and shutter speed are the natural element which helps us in setting the exposure using the available light. And when there is not enough light available with you, you should go for ISO. ISO is an artificial way to amplify the brightness of your image. So with this, let us go in details. Aperture is the opening of your lens that allows the light enters into your camera. Now, wider is the opening allows more light, brightening your image, and smaller is the opening allows less light, darkening your image. Now, next question is, how do you control this opening? There is something known as F number mentioned in your lens. So, by changing the F number, you can change the opening of your aperture. Smaller the F number, wider is the opening, allows more light, whereas bigger the F number, smaller is the opening, allows less light, resulting in a darker image. You have got it right. F4 allows more light than that F5.6 and F8 does. Now to brighten your image or to overexpose your image, you need to keep low F number, which results in a wider opening in your aperture. There is one more important feature that you achieve through aperture, that is depth of field. Depth of field is the portion of your image that is in focus. When you keep your F number small, you get a small portion of your image in focus. And the other side, when you increase your F number, you get a wider portion of your image in focus. So you can think of two scenario when you have to focus on one subject. So you can keep your F number small. In that case, you can focus on that subject and rest are out of focus. That brings a bokeh effect in your image, and this is called shallow depth of field. This is mainly used while taking portrait photography. On the other side, when you have multiple subjects to focus, you have to keep your f number high, where you get a wide depth of field, that is multiple subjects in focus in your image. This is used in event photography and landscape photography. To summarize aperture, higher the f number, low the aperture width, enters less light, darkens your image, you get a wide depth of field. And lower the f number, wider is the opening, allows more light, brightens your image, you get shallow depth of field. Now let's talk about shutter speed. Every camera has gotten shutter. When you click for a picture, shutter opens, allows the light get into your camera, then closes back again. The time duration for which the shutter remains open is called as shutter speed. For a slow shutter speed, it gives more time for the shutter to remain open, in turn allows more light to get into your camera, brightening your image. Other way, when for a fast shutter speed, the shutter remains open for a less time, allows less light to get into your camera, results in a darker image. Shutter speed is measured in fraction of seconds or seconds. There is one important application of shutter speed. When you want to freeze the action in your image, you need to go for a high shutter speed. And when you want to bring motion blur in your image, you need to go for a slow shutter speed. For bird photography, believe me guys, you need to keep a minimum 1/1000 of your second shutter speed. In this image, you can see, in order to capture this action which I have done, I have kept my shutter speed to 1/4000 of a second. And if I want to bring motion blur in my image, or if I am shooting a still subject, I have to keep my shutter speed low. To recap shutter speed, slower the shutter speed allows more light, brings motion blur in your image. Faster shutter speed allows less light, brings less motion blur in your image. Now let's talk about ISO. ISO is not the controller of light. ISO is defined as the sensitivity of the image sensor towards the light. At high ISO, your image sensor is very sensitive towards light, and at low ISO, your image sensor is less sensitive towards light. Now you must be thinking, why can't we keep ISO always high so that we have a flexibility of changing shutter speed and aperture? But guys, you should remember, high ISO comes with a high noise. You get grains in your image when you shoot at high ISO. Your image quality is gone and the details in your image will be totally killed. It is always recommended to shoot at low ISO. Now the ISO performance of the camera varies from camera to camera. You need to know to what extent you can push the ISO of your camera without losing the quality of your image. Let's recap ISO. High ISO brings brighter image, but your quality of your image is very poor. Low ISO, you get very low light, but you get a very quality picture. Now I have learned the three pillars of exposure triangle, that is shutter speed, aperture and ISO. Now let me see how to put all these three of them together. Before I go for a shooting, I need to set my exposure. For that, I need to see the available light with me. If I am shooting at outdoor, I have lots of light available with me. I usually keep my ISO at 100 or 200. Next, I need to set the aperture. Now, before I go for aperture setting, I need to look for the number of subject. Now, if I have one subject to focus, and or if I want to bring a bokeh effect, or if I'm going for a portrait photography, I need to keep my f number as low as possible. And in the other side, if I am going to take a group photograph or a event photograph or a landscape photograph, I need to have my f number high to have a wide depth of field. Now once I am done with my ISO and aperture, next I go for shutter speed. Here I need to look for what kind of effect I want to bring in my image. If I want to freeze the action, I need to go for a high shutter speed, and if I want to bring the motion blur in my image, I need to go for a low or slow shutter speed. This is only a typical example I have shared, whereas this settings will change from situation to situation based on the light available with you, and also what kind of effect you want to bring in your image. In one of my future video, I am going to take few of the case study and show you in field how do I set my exposure using these 3 exposure elements. With this, we have come to an end of this video. Hope you guys have enjoyed my video. Please hit the like button, subscribe my channel and share it. Don't forget to visit my Insta handle smrtiranjan_photography, where you will find some really cool images. If you have any queries or comments, please mention in the comment box below. I will be answering them. Stay tuned to my next videos. Till then, take care. Bye bye.